So welcome to another wargame review from theplayersaid.com. My name's Alexander.
And I'm Grant.
And today we're taking a look at a new game?
Yeah, it's a 2022. Okay. Yep, it just came out.
And this is from Draco Ideas. And the designer is Pablo Sanz. And this is 1212 Las Navas de Tolosa.
Yeah, it's very good. Wow.
Wow. So this is a two-player, semi-abstract, kind of a tactical level war game about a particular battle in medieval Spain.
Between the Christians and the Muslims.
Yes. And so, well, I don't know if it, yes.
You don't know what?
I don't know if it was Spain at the time, but they referenced the Iberian Peninsula.
Right, so that's... Yeah.
Yes,
Spain,
most likely.
Portugal, right.
So this is a very short, well, it's a small format war game. You could play this in probably an hour or less, is what I would say.
The box says 30 minutes, but
30 minutes would be a very quick game.
something would have to go very wrong for either side, I think.
Yeah, I think this is more of the, 40 to 50 minutes.
Yeah,
Maybe
but still quick.
Out. Yeah, you can still play this on a lunch break or kind of stick this in a larger gaming session. So, what is this game? Well, I have a big bunch of dudes, and you have a bunch of dudes, and the crux of this game is the card play that activates them to kind of fight and advance, and the Christians are trying to move and destroy, like, the
Pasha sitting up here.
Yes, up in his little camp.
Which is the best counter I've ever seen. I mean, it's literally the Sultan is like lounging
in a tent.
And I expect to see someone feeding him grapes. And,
and then the Muslims just have to kind of stop the Christians from doing that, or just inflict a lot of damage on them to where they're like combat ineffective, basically. So it's a game of immense attrition, right? How many guys are dead? Yeah, almost all of them.
Yep.
But there comes a point where if you control twice as many spots on the board as the opponent, because they're all dead, that's insta-win as well, outside of the kind of, destroying the Pasha victory conditions.
Although in order to destroy the Pasha, I would assume you'd have to have everything.
Because he doesn't move, so you have to have either been extremely successful with that middle column, or maybe one supporting one, and then kill him. But if you're doing that, you've probably won the other way anyway.
Yep. So
the best part and the really interesting part about this game, which is bilingual, right? It's a Spanish game. There were Spanish rules in it, but all the counters is just numbers and symbols, so that's easy. And so the cards. The best part about this game is the little, very small, tight card engine that fuels the play.
Very well done.
So in the basic game, you have a deck of 9 cards, and each card has a number for the Muslims player at the top and the Christian player at the bottom. The spread of numbers is the same. I think it is 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, 5, 6.
Yep.
But they're aligned differently on different cards. Yes. So where I have a 1, you have a 6, and conversely that's the case. And some of the 2s, 3s, and 4s are mixed.
Mixed up, yeah.
But there's only 9 of these.
Yeah.
And so you shuffle them, and you're going to get dealt 3 at the beginning of the game. One of them you use for initiative, and there's a whole initiative card cycle. But then you have, your turn is 2 cards, and you have 2 cards, so around is 4 cards. And you're going to spend your points on little ops. There's a very small play aid.
And they're asymmetric choices, right?
Yes.
Not choices, but costs.
Yes. Well, and some of the effects are a little bit different.
Yeah, a little bit.
Some of the modifiers and bonuses that you get. But it's a case of I spend my ops to just kind of do a regular attack, or to activate an archer to do some ranged attack, or to initiate a cavalry charge, or to move guys on the board, however they're allowed to move, rally guys, or to play around and switch the initiative cards. But that's pretty much it. This is a small game of very tight maneuvering, because you move kind of one space and all of a sudden that unit might be out on an island, or if they take some damage, they're looking very weak, you've got to bring up the rears with them. There's no retreat in this game from combat, at least. It's just like, you attack, it's vacant, you have to spend a movement point to move in.
Or 2 movement points if the Christians are on the Muslim side.
Yeah.
Which is cool. Logistical concept.
You get advance after combat with a cavalry charge, but not with the regular attacks. But it's like, if I attack you, the units are just like dead and removed from the board. They never retreat. And so your forces are very, very limited as well. You start the board with a ton, right?
Yep.
I think
The whole board's filled up.
Yeah, each space has 3 units in it to start with. So you got 27 forces. They've got 27 forces. But very quickly, the losses mount.
Oh, yeah.
And the attrition is very, very real.
Well, and I would say that is one of your initial goals, is really to weaken. So archery, I think, becomes very important.
Especially very early.
I think you used your archery to great effect, but I countered that because I had better card draws. So I was able to rally more troops. But yet, definitely getting initiative that first turn, I think, is very important.
Yes.
Because you can really put the hurt on someone immediately, and then they're kind of playing from the back foot.
Yes, absolutely.
The rest of the game, I felt like initiative was less important, but still important.
Yeah.
Meaning, if I get to attack you first, I'm going to do damage, potentially. Not always. And you're weaker, so it's like you want to go first.
Yeah, the alpha striking people in this game is very important.
Yeah.
And so that initiative becomes important. But it's that whole, do I put a ton into initiative? Because then I have weaker
Fewer
cards to
cards
play with.
activate.
And that becomes its own little conundrum, because you only have a hand of 3 cards.
Yeah.
But the really neat thing about this is the card that you play for initiative, at the end of the turn, you get that back, and you get 2 new cards. So, yeah, you're going to put something really strong in there, but potentially you'll get that back again, unless there's the little option to switch the initiative card.
Which is a very, I think, a nice addition to the system.
Yeah.
Because I used that a couple of times. I think you used it a couple of times. But it's a key. It's something you're going to decide at the moment. Okay, I'm going to win this initiative because I really need to go first, and then I have good cards behind it, so I can get that card back. And that's important. I mean, it's important. Or switch my card with your card.
Or if I just like dump a card and it's my little 1 card, but it's your 6 at the bottom.
Yeah.
If I put that into initiative, you're going to then, I'm going to spend some points to switch that, because you're going to pick that 6 up. That'll go into your hand, so you'll have an amazing turn next turn, potentially.
Well, and the really interesting thing also about the way the combat works is the cards are drawn. So you total up your strength, like I'm an 8, you're a 6, then you draw a card, right?
Yes.
And on your side, because they're dual-sided, if I drew this one, I'm +6, you're +1. So I really want this card either in my hand doing ops, or in the deck so I can be good at fighting.
Yes.
If you're using it for initiative,
it's doing neither of those.
It's doing neither of those things. So I want to be able to try to get that. That's another game, kind of game within the game. And I liked that. It added some depth to a fairly basic game.
Yeah.
I liked that.
There's a lot of games out there where they almost encourage you to do card counting. Like if you,
Right.
or at least some element of that. Like if you think about Twilight Struggle or Labyrinth, if you know that deck well, and you can kind of remember most of the things that have been played already, you're going to be in a good spot.
Yeah.
In this one, the deck is 9 cards.
9.
So if you pay attention, you can memorize the exact layout of what's in the discard pile, and what hasn't been played and what's in your hand.
Yep.
So you can have a very good gauge about where you stand with, if I do a combat now, that's probably going to be a very bad combat for me.
Mm-hmm.
Or it might be one that's like really good, or it might be like, this is a total toss-up.
Yeah.
And could go either way. And so I don't do a lot of that in games, because I'm just not, I don't know. It's not very.
Well, that takes a lot of focus.
It's not very enjoyable for me to sit there and burn my brain like that. But on this little scale, that was fun to play around with.
Absolutely. Well, as I was looking at the cards in my hand, right, I've got 3 cards. I can see the numbers that you would have had and now you don't have. So I may be able to say, oh, boy, on these initiatives, there's a 4, 5, and a 3. That's 3 of your better cards.
Yeah.
I know that deck doesn't have very good cards in it. More than likely.
So you might gamble more. And hey, I'm going to do the combats because I know I'm probably going to get away with it.
Yeah. So that's an interesting thing. But once again, it's a like you said, I don't want to have to focus on it and count cards, but it definitely is interesting.
Yeah, you can do it in this one more than you can in other games.
Yeah.
Easier.
Because there's 9 cards.
Yes, it's much simpler to
9
get away
cards,
with.
yeah.
What I'll do is, we've talked a bunch, I'll show you how it works, and again, not that complicated, and then we'll wrap up with some final thoughts. So here's a look at the board, and it is a very small board. We just have 18 spaces on it, and at the start of the game, every space is filled up with 3 counters, each of which represent either these kind of pale beige Christian troops or the green-colored Muslim ones. There are cavalry, which have a little horse icon in the bottom right-hand corner, or there are archers. Most of them died in the bottom right-hand corner, and then everyone else is just kind of like a generic foot soldier. And again, the game is very simple. You have a little deck of cards, and you will have a hand of 3 cards.
9 cards total, right?
I think it is. Is it 9 total? Yeah. And you're going to play 1 of your 3 cards for initiative. If I'm the Muslim player, I only care about the top for those values for me. If the Christian player has this hand, they're looking at the bottom values. So you play 1 card for initiative. This is a 1 for Muslim initiative. This is a 5 for Christian initiative. And so then a round is only, I play a card, like I have a hand of 2 cards, the opponent has a hand of 2 cards. So the cycle and the flow of the game is generally very quick, and the game, if it ever tilts one way or the other, like it did here, it can end quite quickly, which is, that's part of what keeps the game short, and you can play it over kind of a lunch break. So on my turn, if I'm the Muslim player, I've got 3 points or 4 points that I can play, and I have a little handy menu of actions that I can do. I can do some attacks. My archers cost 2, and they do 2 damage. A standard attack only costs 1 point, but I attack at a -1 power. They're not very good. Or I can do a cavalry charge. It's 3 points, and I get +2 attack, but you have to obviously have a horse with them, and they can kind of charge into a space and do that. Or you can spend 1 point to move, to rally a guy, or to switch the initiative, because you'll see these get cycled and you pick these back up. It's really, really cool. So I might play this card. I got 3 points. That's either a single cavalry charge. So I'm going to say, hey, I got some cav here. I'm going to do a cavalry charge against this guy. I've got 6 points. He's got 2. You flip a card and add these. So I have 6, 7, 8, 9. He has 2, plus 4 is 6. And the difference is how much damage the opponent takes, or the loser takes. I do more. I do 3 damage. This is 1 damage. This is 2 damage. The rest is lost. Because it's a cavalry charge, I have to follow through into the empty space, and I've also moved here. That's a cav charge. Really simple. Archery, you shoot 2 spaces, never more, never less. So the position of your archers is very interesting in when you move them. So they couldn't attack this space, but they can attack this space. They can shoot diagonally, but you can't attack this space, but you can attack this one. And so if I had an archer back here, the Christian player might spend a point to shoot archery. And the nice thing about this is there's a little bit of asymmetry. The Christian archers, it only costs 1 point to activate them. You kind of activate it, it does 1 point of damage. As opposed to, let's fish out the Muslim archer, he costs 2 to activate, but he does 2 damage, 1, 2. And again, if there's a bunch of guys in a space, the defender can assign us how they want. They could lose a guy, they could take 1 and 1, you can assign that however you want. And you might choose to lose a guy, so that you could move a different guy up. Hey, we need to get a horse in here so we can cav charge. And there wasn't space there before. But if a guy's removed from the board, they can never come back. So you want to preserve the overall strength of your army, or do you need to do some specialization? The Christian player, when they cavalry charge, they get a huge bonus because they're much more well-trained and have heavy knights, I suppose. So when they charge, they get a +5 attack, and then they also have a little matching game with the 3 different Christian kings. If the card that the Christian player played, if this symbol matches this symbol, and they're doing an attack, they also get an additional +1 as well, which is nice. So it's a very small amount of like kind of hand management and things that you're working on. But at most, even if you have your best card, let's say you had with a Christian player and you played a 6, you got 6 ops, you can only ever do 1 archery attack. So you can't do 6 archery attacks. And you can only ever do 2 attacks total. One of those 2 may be an archery attack. So it's not as if you can do like 6 standard attacks that would just like break the game. And so you're like, okay, cool, I'm going to do a cav charge, I'm going to activate some archery, and then you've got a few points left to move guys. If you have dudes that are damaged, you can rally them. Rallying them also exhausts them. Anytime you attack, you exhaust, and you just kind of tilt them. And so then they can't do anything else for the rest of the round. Again, the round is only 2 cards per player. Now, you're going to do all this and do all these battles, and then the real cool part is that where you drew 3 cards at the beginning of the game, what you do is you then pick back up your initiative card, and then you shuffle everything that was played, and you only get 2 cards. So the cards you play in for initiative, sometimes you're like, oh, I want to put something good there. Sometimes you're dumping things in there, but then that bad card keeps coming back to you. And so one of the neat parts of the game is, oh, I only tossed in a 1 and they tossed in a 5, is one of the actions is to switch cards. I can spend one of my points to switch these. So now the Christian player is about to pick up a 6 into their next hand, and the Muslim player is about to pick up a 5. So that's kind of beneficial for both sides. And you can also spend a second point when you do that to kind of lock these from being switched back. But if you don't, on a subsequent turn, the opposing player could switch them back again if they don't want that to happen. So there's a really neat little element of that, but the card deck is so small, you'll have 3 cards in play, so will the opponent. Then there's a deck of 3 cards. And so if you do 3 battles, you're going to add these battles to it. If you do a 4th battle in the course of a turn, all the cards that are played do not get shuffled. They just get placed back in the order that they were. So if you have a good enough memory, you can kind of bank on, hey, I know this is going to be a good attack. During the course of a turn, if you have lots of attacks going on, you can start to predict better the outcomes of them, which is really interesting. But it's a really simple game, but there's a lot of depth to the simplicity of it, and you can get. There were times where I felt like I was in a huge hole, and then there were times where Grant felt like he was totally on the defensive and things went really badly, and it would swing back and forth, and then all of a sudden the game kind of ended because I lost a few battles in a row. But it's a very neat little abstract game. What we'll do is we'll wrap up with a few final thoughts. So that was a look at the map. I had a really enjoyable time playing this game.
No doubt. Fun little game.
Yeah, and it's very different from the styles of games that we normally play.
Right.
It felt like it was quite abstract with the way that, like, your movement was regulated with your 3 columns. And, like, counting the squares of, like, how and when I can shoot my archery and who's next to who. And if I move these guys up, then my archers will be out of range. Or, I need, like... Sometimes you're just like, I just got to rally guys. I just got to rally dudes. Yeah. And you're like, that doesn't feel great.
It doesn't feel good at all.
You need to, otherwise you'll get smashed in combat. You got to get the odds up.
I remember there was one time that I think I drew a 5 and a 6. And I thought, oh, this is the perfect time because I needed to rally a lot of people. So I went ahead and attacked with my 6, knowing I had the 5 that I could rally people. Because these counters, they have 2 sides, right? So when you take a number of wounds, you got to lose that many steps, and you don't have a lot. You have like 6, right?
At most.
And I think that's the other beauty in the game. The combat system, it's a challenge combat. Like you might end up after drawing a card, you're a 12 and I'm an 8. You inflict 4 losses.
Yeah, the difference
on
between
me.
those two is the losses.
So then I got to flip those counters over. And when it's 6, you're done, right? Everybody's going to die.
Yeah, they'll come back from that.
But when it's 1 or 2, then you got to make some hard choices. I'm going to flip this guy over because I don't really care, but I want to keep my cavalry intact because I'm telling you, the Christian cavalry is
very strong.
+5 on attacks, And then you have for the king, if you play the appropriate suited card for that column. So you got to make choices about what you lose, how you lose them. And sometimes you don't have a choice. And I actually like that when you did like 6 wounds to me, because then I didn't have that angst in deciding. I was just like, wipe them off the board. But that was unique. I loved that difference was your losses. I thought that was very cool. Although I would say I thought our battles were very lopsided. Interestingly enough. Most often than not, it was when I charged, because I'm +5.
Yes.
I just felt like they were really lopsided. And that's probably part of this history, but it was interesting. Really, as the Muslims, you're just trying to hold on.
Yeah, it's, can I do enough attrition to where your cav charges start at like base 3 or 4 and then add the 5?
Because then that's
instead of starting at 6, adding the 5.
Yeah, when you start at a 6 +1 for the king, 7, then you add a 5, that's 12, and you're going to draw a card. It can be up to 18.
And it's like, no matter what I have,
you're losing.
I can't defend that.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to lose probably everyone. So
that's why I think that really focusing that archery fire early and trying to, that's very key. And I thought you did a decent job of that. I just happened to take out some of your archers early.
Yeah. It was a very neat kind of thing to play around with all that kind of stuff. There is also, like, we played the basic game. There's an advanced game that has like a bunch of units become like special units and have all these other rules that we did not play with. So
but that takes away some of the simplicity of the game, I think, and what's beautiful about it.
Yeah, what I liked is that we set it up. The rules are very easy to learn, and again, the translation is excellent. We didn't have any questions about this.
And I have found that with Draco Ideas games. They're a Spanish publisher, but the games that we've received, the rules are very well translated.
I presume they get
someone, and I think that's key.
Who's very good to do it. I wonder if it says here. It doesn't say. But like this, like you said, the beauty of the game is you set it up and you play it, and then you've played a fun game in 30 plus minutes, right?
And this is a game I could play with my daughter. I think you could play with your son. And that's good. There's importance to having these types of games.
Yeah, you can add in the advanced stuff, and I think there might be a couple variants in here, but as it stands, with kind of the normal game that it comes with, was a really enjoyable game.
Oh yeah.
Considering what it is. Now, is this for everyone? Is it like the
Probably
most
not.
hardcore, intense simulation? No.
If all you play is Hex Encounter, then you're probably not going to like this game.
It comes in this very small little, almost postcard-sized box. And that's
Which I think is great, because I just put it on my shelf and it doesn't take up a lot of room.
But that's the kind of game you should expect from it.
Yep.
But it isn't just like a nothingy game. Like the game was actually pretty fun and enjoyable.
Well, and I would say we haven't really talked much about it. The production value on this is really high.
Oh, it's excellent. Yes, absolutely.
Nice cards, great art. I love that style of art. Actually, I wonder...
Pablo Sanz did the artwork as well.
Because Ivan Sakaris, I think, also does styles similar to this. He did Alma Raven.
Okay.
And I was kind of looking at it, is that Ivan's work? But the counters are great. I mean, they're just unique. They're different. Each side,
they're great.
Even among the Christian soldiers, they look different, which I think is cool. I just think it's very well produced, and probably a very good value for what you're going to pay, $30 or $40 for something like this, and you could play this time and time again, and plus you have a variant to add in.
It's a bit late, but if I had got this in my stocking at Christmas, you'd be like, yeah, that was great.
Oh, absolutely.
That's a great nice little game. Take it on a work trip, take it on vacation with you. This could go anywhere, and the game itself was really fun to play.
Absolutely. Had a blast playing it, and I'd play this again, no doubt.
So, 1212 Las Navas de Tolosa.
I think you said it better the first time.
I probably did, from Draco Ideas. Check it out if it's something you're interested in. But appreciate you very much for tuning in. I've been Alexander from theplayersaid.com.
And I'm Grant.